All right, well, it is 6:30. So I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Manchester Conservation Commission for Tuesday, September 17, 2024. We operate under the auspices of the Wetlands Protection Act and the local wetlands bylaw. And we're here with the dual mission of protecting the wetland resources and serving our neighbors. This meeting is being conducted virtually over Zoom, which means that we will be recording on Zoom, and that will include video if your camera is turned on. And there will be points during the meeting for public comment. I'll indicate when that is, and if you have a comment or a question on a particular issue or application, you should indicate by raising your hand physically or virtually using the controls in Zoom. And we have a chat function here in Zoom, but please use it only for technical questions, IT and other mishaps, and not for substantive questions or comments, because it does not become part of the record. And finally, we'll conduct all of our votes by roll call. So let me begin that by calling the roll of commissioners and staff. Vice Chair, Ms. Sari Oseason.
Present.
Dr. Olga Hayes.
Here.
Mr. David Lumsden.
Here.
Dr. Gordon Turner.
Here.
Dr. Jeffrey Bodmer Turner.
Here.
And Dr. Henry Ottinger.
Here.
And we have our staff present, our Conservation Administrator, Kristen Farr.
Here.
And our Secretary and Clerk, Eva Palmer.
Here.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate all your efforts. Do we have any matters before we take up applications? I know there were some informational items, but I don't see anybody representing them here yet. That being the case, we'll go directly to notices of intent. The first one under the local bylaw only is 12 Plum Hill Road, map 10, lot 24. Local number 39 dash, is it 0999?
9999.
It can't be 9.
It doesn't really have a number because it's just under the bylaw. It doesn't have a, there's no.
Thank you. You told me that last time and I
It's
completely
okay.
forgot. We don't give it a local number because we don't. This is for construction of a subsurface septic wastewater treatment system and retaining wall with a 200-foot setback to vernal pool under Manchester Wetland Bylaw. The owner is Brian Harvey. This is continued from our meeting last week. And someone from Hancock here to update us on this.
Hi, good evening. Tom Sachs with Hancock Associates, representing Mr. Harvey. So we are following up regarding our site walk last Friday. Thank you for all those who joined me there. Topics of concern were elevation change with the vernal pool and the septic system. As those who were on site noted, we did have a significant change between the septic location and the vernal pool. So that was one of our main headlines there. Other topics of concern were the tree canopy, the removal of trees within the vernal pool setback. As discussed, we looked into that. We believe that due to the site being existing conditions as ledge outcrops, that the proposed condition of grass areas will help with the runoff factor. Other things noted is the infiltration trenches along the driveway area.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from the commission?
I wasn't able to attend the site visit, so I'm just curious from the other commissioners who were there, if you can sort of fill us in a little bit on the this issue, the topic of the elevation difference? What was the concern there? The vernal pool is higher than the
Yeah, the vernal
septic?
pool is substantially higher elevation than the septic leaching field. But in between them is something of a minor but visible ridge.
Hmm.
So there is some grade separation between the two. It wasn't possible for me to determine where the primary habitat of amphibians was going to be in this terrain. It could be kind of anywhere. There's no classic rock face with voids to serve as a reptile condominium.
Hmm.
So we couldn't determine that, and I guess that means we'll rely on the local rule, which is that the vernal pool resource extends to 100 feet beyond the high water level of the pool, and the buffer zones apply an additional 100 feet. And hence, we're overlapping approximately half of the leaching field,
Okay.
as well as some of the retaining wall, I believe. Any other comments from those on site?
Well, the only thing is the survey. It did seem that given the elevation, the grade change between the vernal pool and the septic system, that any concerns about flow of water from the septic area to the vernal pool will not happen. So I wasn't concerned about that. I still was somewhat concerned about the amount of trees removed and therefore the effect on the drainage, as we talked about from that site down to the front of the site on 127. So I just want to be sure that there's adequate storage to pick up any of the water that would fall during a particularly significant rain event.
Wow, this is Olga. We also had a neighbor who is down below where the septic's going to be in the house. And do we know who that is?
That would be the McDougalls on the same side of the street. Both
Right.
Gordon and his father, his neighbor. And then we also had some comments from I think it's the Snyders on the opposite side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
My issue there, Olga and Sari, is that our jurisdiction from the vernal pool extends only halfway into the leaching field and doesn't touch any of the real construction site. So while we have jurisdiction over tree removal for part of the leaching field, the majority of it is outside. The majority of the site prep is going to be outside our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And I think we did a thorough job of making the folks at Hancock and Mr. Harvey aware of the town tree policy. Is that fair, Dr. Bodmer-Turner?
It depends on which site you're talking about, but for this site, yes.
I'm not saying it may not have the desired effect, but we did. Yes,
Tom,
Olga.
have you looked at the McDougal's property and the runoff from this property onto theirs? I know it has nothing to do with the septic and the vernal pool, but it is on this site and it is cumulative, and I am concerned about what they're saying historically has happened to their property, and now it's basically going to be denuded to build this house. And
Yep. So we did take into account the McDougal's property in our site design. Unfortunately, our survey doesn't actually go into their property. But as you guys saw on site, the hill does go right into their backyard. But our goal with our design was to contour the grades into our property and prevent runoff from our property going into their property. I think Ms. McDougall showed you that photo of an actual river coming down the side of their property line. And it's something that we did take into account with our site design. We are looking to pull the contours into the infiltration trench area along the driveway. And so unfortunately, they are in a tough spot where they are at the bottom of a hill and water will go down into their property line, but we are trying to reduce the amount of flow going from our site to theirs.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
No,
Anyone in the public want to comment on 12 Plum Hill Road? Which I think we're also calling, what, 216 Summer Street now?
I believe 214.
214,
Yeah.
thank you. 214 Summer Street. I'm hearing none. Has everybody had a chance to look at the Snyders and the McDougall's written comments? I think they're in Dropbox.
Yes.
Good. Okay, commission ready to vote on this? Whether or
yes,
not to
Yes.
close the hearing? I'll hear a
Yes.
motion.
I move that we close the hearing at, is it 212? Is that what it is?
214.
214,
14 Summer 12 Plum.
12 Plum Hill Road. With conditions that we will discuss now or later.
I
Do we
haven't
have-
prepared it. I haven't prepared anything, so I prefer to postpone it unless, Kristen, do you have advice for us here?
I think I would just close the public hearing and then we can issue at the next meeting, which is October
First.
1st.
Mhm.
2 weeks from tonight.
2 weeks from tonight. All right, I'll second Olga's motion that we close the hearing on 214 Summer 12 Plum Hill. All those in favor, David,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Olga,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Sari,
Aye.
and the chair is an aye, so it's unanimous. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
This brings us to 208, 206, I guess it's both, Summer Street, 208 Summer Street, map 22, lot 22, DEP file 390919, and this is under both the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw for construction of a single-family home by Timothy Huff. The resources we'll find out in a minute, and it's new, so there is a notice to read into the minutes.
Hold on one second. Just got it up here. All right, Timothy Huff requests the commission make a decision regarding a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family house within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and within the 200-foot buffer zone to a vernal pool at 208 Summer Street.
Thank you. And who's here from Hancock on this one?
Hi, Tom Sachs again, Hancock
Ah, back
Associates.
Fire
I'm
away.
representing Mr. Huff for 208 Summer Street. If I may, can I share my screen with you? We do have a new project.
So make sure that's available. Just give me a second. Okay, should be good to go.
All right. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. All right, so this notice intent filing is a second filing. Our previously approved notice intent was for the common drive shown by this limit here. So this new notice of intent will be focusing on the residents to the east of the driveway, We did walk this site last Friday with a few of the members. Within this notice of intent, we are looking for a single-family dwelling. The reason for the intent, the new notice of intent, was feasibility of construction. The previous dwelling or previous design driveway, we had a lot of issues with feasibility in making this driveway because of the reduced 2-to-1 slope. Where we were able to reroute the driveway from the north side of the house to the south side of the house, and we used a little bit more of the less steep area, and we were able to lengthen the driveway to give ourselves a little bit higher of a finished floor elevation. Buffers, the table's on the right here, but to highlight them, we have our 200-foot buffer to the vernal pool, as we saw on Mr. Harvey's site, and we also have work inside the 100-foot wetland setback. So basic mitigation that we have here is we do have another one of our infiltration trenches for the driveway. Work done. Also in the backyard, we have infiltration trenches for the roof runoff. So we are also mitigating for the impervious area within that buffer zone. Any other? I believe that is it. Open for questions.
Thank you,
So-
Tom. Go
Steve,
ahead. Go ahead,
so
Jeff.
so the area that is in Hatch, that's on the north part of the building, that's an infiltration.
Yep. So we do have a roof drains running to an infiltration trench.
You're saying a trench. Can you point that out?
Right here.
Okay, so that's more than a trench. That's
Yeah, it's a field.
a field. Okay,
Yep.
an infiltration field.
And there's
Okay,
a patio above it? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it looks like. Yep. Stone brick patio.
Okay.
And just to note, the septic shown was previously approved by the Board of Health, so we've already gone through them with this.
Mhm. And Tom, can you show us what the previous layout was, where the dwelling and where the driveway were?
It's a little tough to see, but I can highlight it. So this is kind of the limit of the driveway.
Mhm.
It's just this tough dotted line. So there's your driveway, and then the house came off to this end here. So they had a lot of issues with the steeper slope on this end of the driveway. They also need to make up a little bit more distance to get the finished floor elevation up. So we proposed a driveway to the southern end of the property.
So in place of a site where all of the impervious would be outside the buffer zones, you're bringing us something which has thousands of square feet of impervious within both buffer zones, outer buffer, but still buffer zones.
We are looking to mitigate the impervious with the roof drains and the infiltration trenches along the sides of the driveway.
Which should help with runoff quite a bit, but how will you mitigate the impact of the habitat and other protected values within the buffer zone?
Caitlin, are you on? Can you help with that question? Maybe not.
So along those lines, I would be very interested in more information about how the site will be planted, because it's really been pretty much stripped
Mhm.
currently, and you haven't provided any information about planting plan.
Landscaping, right?
So we're definitely proposing loam and seed for the slope. We will need the slope stability. Talking with the client, we are looking at trees.
Loam and what kind of seed?
I believe is in our detail. I think it's ryegrass.
And the irrigation presumably as well?
We do not have any plans for irrigation at this point.
Good.
Caitlin, do you have any response to mitigation?
Yep. So Caitlin White from Hancock Associates. I'm one of the wetland scientists on staff. Currently we don't have a planting plan, but the applicant is open to offering a planting schedule to mitigate for the resource area that is lost.
That's good to hear. I would encourage that. I'm curious about other commissioners, and I'd particularly encourage the planting of some diverse native species that require little mowing or irrigation in contrast to perennial ryegrass.
I certainly agree, and when you look at the where the buffer zones are and such, there's quite a bit of area within the buffer zone, and so I think I would certainly want to condition this to have an approved planting plan with native plantings.
We
I'm,
don't have a performance standard for the ratio of mitigation when you're in the outer buffer zones like this, but we do encourage it.
so
Show us one.
Steve, if I may, it's Olga, and I'm looking at this in the blue where the house and the driveway were originally. Clearly you kept it out of the buffer zones then, but I'm just wondering where you have just the house, is there some way to reconfigure the drive, leave the house there with the blue and just reconfigure the driveway, which would get you out of some of the buffer zones? I don't know if that's even a considered idea. I know you want to raise the first floor,
Mm-hmm.
but at what expense?
Yeah, unfortunately, this driveway was dictating the elevation. So we do have a step even we have a garage floor elevation of about 4 feet less than our first floor elevation. So, the feasibility of construction on the north side was one of the main factors, into making us go into the buffer zones. The other is the steep slope and having to use the driveway to set our garage floor elevation. I don't think it would be difficult to make up that elevation by shortening the driveway. So if we were to use the original house location, I don't think we would make that up.
But there is a house location available to you. Do you think that stays out of the buffer zones and would reconfigure the driveway to reduce the intrusion? I'd be curious to see it if you have one in mind.
So Tom, can I jump in? Jay
Yeah.
Blackwood with Hancock Associates. So this, what Tom's shown here in the blue was the original design that was part of the original NOI. During the construction of this, we started running into issues with a few different things. Huge cut and fill required, big retaining walls, and the biggest thing just being ledge conditions to make those driveway grades in-house location work. The driveway that's currently proposed works more with the existing grades in the area. It more follows the what's out there currently. And the house is shown in a more a level area on the site. So it just makes construction much easier. Less
We
impact.
understand that, but you chose this site knowing the elevations, the ledge conditions. So to come back and tell us that what we authorized the driveway for is no longer possible, and in fact, you need to go into the buffer zones, particularly the vernal pool one, comes dangerously close to a bait and switch approach, folks. So we need to see some alternatives to this. And you need to go back and give us some of those that either relocate the house and the driveway, or I'm not sure what, but I'm not sure how you're going to mitigate the quantity of impervious you're putting into buffer zone here. And particularly if you have an alternative. Your septic site, I gather, is already confirmed. So it's a matter of money, cut and fill, retaining walls, and somewhat a matter of aesthetics. But again, you knew all of that. The owner bought this site knowing the grades, knowing the ledge. it is not really up to you to say, I'd like to trade wetland resource values for a more comfortable, lower cost construction when you've previously proposed to us something that was more respectful to wetland resource.
Okay, so we can look into alternatives and mitigation
Thank
if
you.
it's possible. You know, with that, we'll need to continue to the next meeting and we'll look into
Good.
those alternatives.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the site visit as well, because it was very eye-opening. Other commissioners, any comments? Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I appreciate that they will take a look.
Kristen, you,
Yeah, so I was just thinking about this while I'm sitting here. DEP has a policy that like there can't be two similar NOIs on the same property. So I'm curious how the previous one under 39-880 is, I mean, like it's, I know it's different, but like how different, and is DEP going to flag this? And like, once this one gets approved, are you going to then request a certificate of compliance for the old one? Like, how is that going to work?
good question.
Caitlin, do you want to respond to that?
I don't know the answer right now. I think that's something that I'd have to look into and do some research, and I can get back to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
That would be
You
I
can
think
put that
that would
on your
be-
list.
Yeah, good, along with the planting plan and the other things the commissioners requested.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll move with the applicant's consent that we continue to our next meeting, October 1st. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, Olga,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Sari,
aye.
and I'll make that unanimous. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize for not asking for public comment on that one, but you will have another bite at the apple on October 1st. We
Steve,
move now to, yes.
Chris Lapointe is here.
Oh,
But
good. Well, then, rather than move to an RDA, if that's all right with the assembled group, Chris, we'd like to give you the microphone to introduce the proposal you're making, or Greenbelt is making to CPC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate being taken out of order. My name is Chris Lapointe, President of Essex County Greenbelt Association. And I'm before you this evening to discuss a conservation project that we're working on in Manchester and Gloucester. We have recently made an application to the Community Preservation Committee and would like to describe the opportunity, and if the commission is amenable, potentially make an indication of your support with the Community Preservation Committee. The opportunity that we have in front of us is to acquire approximately 330 acres of land owned by Philip de Normandy in Manchester and Gloucester. So this is land that is at the end of Colburn Road in Manchester, approximately 150 acres on the Manchester side. Those of you who've been in town for a while will recall the sort of phase one effort back in the late 1990s to protect about 120 acres of Long Hill via conservation restriction. So on the Manchester side, 150 acres of land, 120 is presently protected with a restriction, but 30 acres at the top of Long Hill remains unprotected right at the end of Colburn Road. So we have the opportunity to acquire that land in Manchester. And we also have the opportunity to acquire an adjacent 180 acres in Gloucester. This combined acreage is adjacent to more than 1,000 acres of contiguous protected land that includes land around Cranberry Pond in Manchester, the Gloucester water supply land. It runs all the way up to Route 128 and Mount Ann Park. Many of you, I hope, have had a chance to be out there over the years. That there's a tremendous trail system that connects into Dexter Pond Conservation Area, connects into Manchester Essex Conservation Trust, Hooper Trask land, which is across the railroad tracks, and is really part of an incredible network. There's about 8 miles of trails at least on that land that connects into at least 20 more that continues beyond. The land has some of the upper reaches of Cat Brook, contains some of the headwaters of Wolf Trap Brook. It's among some of the most climate resilient land in all of Essex County. It's biomap core habitat. It has all the stuff that we care about in terms of land conservation, and it has tremendous public recreational resources. So the opportunity that we have is to acquire all of the land, the unprotected and the already protected land, for $3 million. And we have been working for some time, really starting a little over a year ago, trying to secure funding from the Commonwealth. We have a little over $1 million from what's called a landscape partnership grant. So these are state funds that are dedicated to sort of the largest, most important conservation projects in the state. So that's a secured grant, $1.1 million towards that effort. We have foundation requests in of nearly $1 million. We have a private fundraising campaign that is underway, and we're making good progress raising money from folks in Gloucester, folks in Manchester, and beyond. And essentially, we have about a $550,000 gap that's left to go towards the $3 million total fundraising target. And we're asking the town of Manchester to consider investing $250,000 towards this project. So $250,000 towards a total $3 million, 330-acre land conservation project. The sort of summary of the project structure is that Greenbelt is proposing to own and manage all of the land in both communities. So for those of you, hopefully all of you who know Greenbelt, we've protected more than 21,000 acres of land across the county, but we own close to 8,000 acres that we manage for wildlife habitat and scenic resources and public access. So I think we do a pretty good job at that in terms of laying out trails, maintaining our properties, making them welcoming to the public. And that's what we would do here. So there's really, again, as you probably know, there's a beautiful existing trail system. We would be maintaining and enhancing that. On the Gloucester side, and this is part of where the partnership and the landscape partnership comes in. The city of Gloucester has agreed to hold a conservation restriction over the land that Greenbelt will own. So the city is a supporter of the project. The council and the mayor have supported the effort, and their role would be to hold a restriction over on the Gloucester land. If the Community Preservation Committee supports the use of CPA funds, and if ultimately town meeting votes to support that investment, the proposal would be that in Manchester, Greenbelt owns the land, manages the land as I described, and Manchester would be holding a conservation restriction over the land in Manchester that's currently unprotected. So around 30 acres of land, primarily at the top of Long Hill, that's presently unprotected. If this were to go forward, it would be the Conservation Commission is the entity that would be the holder of the conservation restriction. We certainly understand that that is an obligation for the community and for the commission going forward to enforce and monitor that restriction. That being said, it would be a restriction over land that's held by a land trust with a conservation mission So generally, those restrictions are easier to monitor and enforce than other types. So I know you have a big agenda, so I will wind up, but I will just say from our standpoint, this is one of the top priority parcels in all of Essex County. It's one of the largest undeveloped, unprotected parcels in Essex County. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to move forward and try to protect it all and bring the whole thing into the public realm. And we're even more pleased that we have such a good start on the funding. So we're really hopeful that Manchester will see fit to be a funding partner with us. And at that, I'll stop and entertain any questions. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's an exemplary project and well worth of support, in my opinion. One thing that came up last night when you presented to Open Space Committee that might be useful for people here is to explain why you're not seeking a financial contribution from the city of Gloucester.
Sure, that's a great question. So it's a little bit of an appraisal peculiarity. So the land in Gloucester certainly has value. It's 180 acres of land. It has a fair market value of more than $700,000. Gloucester supports conserving this land. However, as you know, Gloucester owns lots of land. Gloucester owns, 5,000 acres of land.
Okay.
They're not interested in owning any more land. They are interested in holding a conservation restriction. The land in Gloucester does not have appraisable development value. So there's no direct road frontage. There's no right-of-way to build a subdivision. There's no rights over the railroad to get in to build an industrial park. So from an appraisal standpoint, the city of Gloucester's conservation restriction is worth very little. So there's not a mechanism by which the city can spend their public money through their Community Preservation Act on this conservation restriction. So it's not the case that we didn't ask. It's not the case that they're not willing. It's a peculiarity of the project, and a lot of the value falls to the Manchester side.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Is that value centered on the 30 acres that were excluded from the original?
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a pretty significant chunk of the value that's on the unrestricted 30 acres, a little north of 1.3 million worth of the value is the unrestricted acreage on the Manchester side. And the remainder, the land that's under the conservation restriction still has quite a bit of value. At 120 acres of restricted land still has a fair bit of value. And as I mentioned, the acreage in Gloucester does too. But yes, the undeveloped, unprotected land at the top of Long Hill is the lion's share of that value.
And just to sharpen that point, Jeff, the value reflects, well, you can imagine what this would mean to a developer such as we're seeing on 206 and 214 Summer Street. It's a much more accessible site. It previously had some kind of buildings on it and some piping and other things.
Right, it's right at the end of Colburn Road, and
it has frontage.
It has frontage. There's a series of woods roads in it that you could drive a two-wheel drive vehicle in there.
Correct. Yeah. So it's itching to be conserved permanently.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody from the public have a question or comment?
I just want to get a little bit more detailed breakdown of the costs here. The 30 acres you said is valued at 1.3 million. The total value of the property is 3.3 million or 3 million?
So our purchase price, our purchase and sale agreement is to purchase all of the land for $3 million.
Okay.
We have an appraisal of everything that is a touch above $2.8 million. So it is not our general practice to pay above appraised value, but it is, in this case, it's about a 7% variance. From our perspective, given the variability in backland, woodland bulk acreage values across Essex County, and the particularly unusual opportunity to buy the assemblage, we're comfortable paying that slight premium. But again, that's on all the acreage. That's on the Gloucester acreage. That's on the restricted acreage.
So if my math is correct, you said the Gloucester acreage of 180 was worth about 700,000. And that the 30 acres is 1.3.
1.35, yeah.
Okay, that leaves 965,000 for the 120 acres that is on the Manchester side.
Sure.
That's right.
It was a, yeah, I mean, it was appraised at a couple bucks less than that, but that's the basic breakdown. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, do
Okay.
you have, Chris, do you have a PDF of the maps and everything that you gave us at Open Space?
I
That
do. I
that
could,
maybe you can send to Kristen and she can pass it on, because I'm not sure that everybody knows this land.
and I apologize. I have this map up on my screen. I don't know.
Yes, you can share.
Can I screen share? Let me
Go right ahead.
do that now. I apologize for not having done that
There
before.
were some maps in Dropbox, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm just going to check Dropbox, 'cause I think.
Is everyone seeing this?
Yep,
Excellent. So you can see the town line, Gloucester, Manchester. We have under agreement everything that is in the red outline. You can see, again, that 180 acres that's in Gloucester. And then the acreage that is in Manchester. And the light green that is within the red is the already restricted portion of the Manchester acreage. And this area here is the 30 or so acres at the top of Long Hill at the end of Colburn Road that is unprotected. This, of course, is
Excellent.
Colburn Road, Dexter Pond Conservation Area.
Yeah, this is Loading Place Road.
Right, Loading Place Road is up here.
Exactly.
And this is, of course, land that Greenbelt has acquired over years from Steve and Marion Hall around Cranberry Pond. And of course, the Gloucester water supply land that runs all the way up to the highway.
This is quite exciting to be able to pull together all of this undeveloped property and keep it that way. It is possible to walk today on land that's entirely CR, but as you can see from the trail network, it's not the easiest thing to do, and now it'll be quite straightforward.
and for me,
These,
this is really exciting because whenever I was on the commission, when the first part was put in conservation, it was originally the whole area that's in green that encompasses Colburn Road and all around. They were going to do, I don't know, 125 homes in there and all the infrastructure. And the residents fought it for 12 years. And it became conservation land with 3 or 4 little mini estates. And so now this piece of Philip de Normandy's is the last remaining piece, and it is incredibly buildable if somebody wanted to do it. So it's very valuable to put in conservation.
And this map, along with a couple of others, are appended to the PDF that's already in our Dropbox for today's meeting materials. So you can fetch it there.
Great.
Chris, is it the intent of CPA to bring this up at the fall town meeting?
So our request to them is to consider bringing it to the fall town meeting if they're willing and if that is feasible on the town side. Our time frame here is relatively compressed for a couple of reasons. One is that in order to qualify for the state funding, the $1.1 million, we have to have the entire project done, all the conservation restrictions conveyed, everything finished before the end of June. So that's the absolute outside time frame. We presently have a closing date with DeNormandy in January. And it's theoretically possible that we can negotiate an extension of a couple or 3 months, but that doesn't really change the complexion of this timing wise in terms of getting to a spring town meeting versus a fall town meeting. And again, with that outside deadline of the state funding, our request would be to consider this at fall town meeting if that's at all possible.
Good. Well, unless there are further comments or questions,
Just had
Well, I'd like to-
one question while the math
ahead,
is up,
Gordon.
just quickly. Is there going to be a long sliver there that is unprotected, or is everything going to be? I'm looking at this red rectangle that kind of shoots up to the right, starting at the Gloucester-Manchester line. What is that little? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so I would have to look back in my title file. That is a piece that is not owned by DeNormandy. It's a piece
Okay.
that we do not have under agreement. It's
Okay,
it's a piece that will be, is
just be left as an
we
island
will
there.
be
that's-
further landlocking and will be
Right.
a title and research project at some point to add in.
Okay, okay, but it's just not included in this. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good point. Well, then I'd like to make a motion that the Conservation Commission strongly endorse this request to the CPC and urge the CPC to act positively. Is there a
I'd
second?
like to second that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Olga,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Doree,
Aye.
and I'll make that unanimous. Thank you, Chris. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Exciting. This brings us to requests for determination of applicability, and we have two. First is 39 Coolidge Point, map 3, lot 27, local number 2024-9-9. This is for construction of an in-ground swimming pool and associated pool deck and landscape improvements by David and Martha, perhaps, Swift. And it's new. Do we need a legal notice read in for an RDA?
I can do that. I have it.
Let's be safe.
It says, David and Martha Swift request the commission make a decision regarding a request for determination of applicability for the construction of an in-ground swimming pool within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal bank at 39 Coolidge Point Road.
Thank you. And is somebody here from Griffin?
Yep, that's me. My name's Sean McDonald. I'm here on behalf of the applicants, David and Martha Swift. How
Sean?
you doing? If you want, I can share my screen if that helps. You can
I think it will. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Where did that go? Okay. You guys see that?
Not yet.
Almost.
But there it is. Yeah.
All right. So I think you guys are familiar with this site. We've done some work on the coastal bank in the past. I think starting in 2020, they replanted the coastal bank. This is for a pool that they want to put in just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The pool is actually just outside the 100-foot buffer, but there's a pool patio going in just around the buffer, about 980 square feet of which is in the buffer zone there. The pool is about 16 by 40. It's a prefabricated fiberglass pool that'll be brought in. We have some plantings going around the patio area. There's going to be a fence, obviously, around the patio area. Small landscape walls going around the patio. Erosion controls downhill and everything. Stormwater is going to be managed. We're going to put a dry well in using a slot drain system. So the Swifts have used this slot drain system in the past for their other patios. I got a detail of it down here. It's basically just a small drain that runs along the edge of the patio. The water will be collected and then dumped into a dry well. up to the north, right here. This is in a location of existing lawn and mulch bed, so it's not really disturbing any undisturbed area. There are a couple trees that are getting taken down, actually 4 trees total on this plan. But they're existing trees that are in landscaped area. They are proposing some screening along this north side along the property line to mitigate for that. That's pretty much it. We're staying mostly outside, we're actually staying completely outside the outer 50 feet of the buffer. So, we're 78 feet from the top of Coastal Bank here, from the closest part of the patio, and the pool is 100% outside the buffer zone. So, are there any questions?
I have one, which is,
Yep.
is the prior OC still outstanding on this? I seem to remember we permitted
Yes. Yeah.
some stonework and grading and removal of invasives and such.
Yep. It's still outstanding, and I think we don't have any plans to close it out as of yet, but I think it's something that we can definitely do if need be before we move forward with this or whatever needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, Steve. Why is this an RDA instead of a notice of intent?
I think because the work was minimal within the buffer zone, and that it was all within previously disturbed areas. I think we had spoken to Kristen, and we we determined it was or an RDA was okay. I just think that given the small scope of work, I think an RDA was sufficient.
Yeah, I'll second what Olga asked. Generally, in buffer zone, we allow RDAs for things like a few concrete footings to hold up a deck. But this is a significant amount of impervious surface that's new, even though, as you say, it's in previously disturbed lawn.
Yeah.
So it strikes me it's way beyond what we allow as an RDA.
Oh, okay.
And fencing and planting and
Tree
so
removal. Yeah.
I agree with everything said. There's more than 2,400 square feet of impervious surface. Sean, what is the dry well is going to collect from where? Are you worried? Is it the impervious?
Yes.
Pool deck?
Yeah. So the pool deck, this right here, this area here is about 980 square feet. So just under 1,000 square feet is proposed within the buffer zone. So the rest of this is going to be outside the buffer. And this little dashed line along the edge, everything sloping away from the pool, is going to capture the stormwater, and it's going to drain into the dry well. That's the idea behind it.
Why not make that surface pervious and use pervious pavers or pervious fill?
I think just to keep it in line with other things that have been done on this site, I think the bluestone with the polyfill, I think is what they've been using at the rest of the walkways on site. So I think just for aesthetics, I think they decided to go with the impervious, and then the dry well.
and then you've also got a landscape wall.
Yep. The wall will go on the low side. It's going to be a small wall, 1.5 foot max. And that's just to keep the amount of fill to a minimum. We don't want to, we're not going to be bringing in fill to fill around the patio to make it level. I think the idea is the wall will actually keep, fill out of the buffer zone. It'll minimize disturbance in the buffer zone.
How will you excavate for the pool?
I think they're going to have a machine on site. I think they had actually previously dug test pits in this area to determine the ledge depth, and I think they discovered it was manageable in that area. So I think it will be dug by just an excavator.
So there might be some blasting or jackhammering?
I don't think there's gonna be blasting. They may have to hammer out small amounts. It's a prefabricated structure, so they'll know exactly, if it'll fit, ahead of time.
So I will reiterate, I would feel more comfortable if this were a notice of intent. I mean, it seems like you pretty much got everything, but I would feel more comfortable.
Yes, me too. This has always been a slippery slope of allowing larger and larger impact while still issuing, being requested to issue negative determinations.
I think
agree.
part of the justification or reasoning was that the pool was 78 feet from the wetland and that it was outside the 50-foot no build zone. But my suggestion would be to do a site visit. I know some of you have been on site. I haven't, but I don't know if that's something that you'd want to consider.
I would encourage you to visit. I don't think I need to see it. I think we walked this one pretty carefully. And it's fairly fresh. How long ago was the previous order? 3 years?
I believe, yeah, I think it was 2020 or 2019.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
4 or
been,
5 years.
yeah.
Time flies. But certainly will other commissioners want to go check this out in person?
I'd
Nope.
like, well,
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
I would
schedule a
too.
site visit then. Good
Not only for
suggestion.
that, but if they're going to be requesting a certificate of compliance for the previous work, it might be good to just see that
Yeah.
finished work as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But that
I'm in
doesn't
favor of
resolve
that.
the issue about whether this should be refiled as an NOI.
yeah.
Oh, no, that's not what I was suggesting at all.
Jeff, what's your opinion on that?
I would agree that, with the amount of material that's being placed inside the buffer, that this should be an NOI, not an RDA. That in fact, the act applies to this and needs to be done as an NOI.
Yeah, certainly if this project had been part of the previous one, it would have been encompassed by an NOI. And we would have been evaluating it and talking about potential mitigation and conditioning. So, I guess the simplest thing for us to do tonight then would be to continue the hearing on this RDA and let you determine how you want to proceed.
Okay.
And at the same time, schedule a site visit at everybody's convenience.
Yep.
So let me move with your consent that we continue this to October 1st, 2024. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. All those in favor? David?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Jeff?
aye.
Olga?
I,
Sri?
Hi.
And I'll make that unanimous, 7 agreement. Thanks. And in terms of site visits, we've been doing them on. Right, that's what he said. We've been doing them on Saturdays.
Saturday,
Oh, I-
first thing in the morning would work for me.
I know
Doesn't
there's a
work.
project going on on Cedar Swamp early on Saturday, but I don't need to see this site again, so. that's
I'm
not a-
I'm involved in that project, so
Oh, okay.
I would
Then-
not be available, and I'd like to see it because I was not on the commission when the original NOI was done.
Would Sunday work?
Sunday doesn't work for me either.
Okay. Would
Later-
Monday work?
Monday
Jeff,
works.
Jeff, is there a time on Saturday that would work or?
After 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm sure this work will be done by 10:30.
Okay,
Jeff Koshan needs to be done by 10 because he's leading a trail
yeah,
walk.
so I mean, I could do Saturday at 11 if that worked for other people.
Yeah, that would work for me.
yeah,
I can
because
do
we
that.
can go to our lunch after that, Suri.
Yeah,
That's important.
It
Yes.
isn't.
Um,
it's important.
and Do you know if that works for the owner and consultant here? Sean, is that doable?
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Okay. We have scheduled a site visit. Kristen, will that work for you?
It will.
11 a.m. Saturday, the 21st.
21st.
Yep. Good. Other than that, it's continued until our next meeting. Thank you, Sean. Our next RDA comes from 6 Putnam Court. And 40R School Street. This was brought to us as a letter. No, it was brought to us as a CFC, and we requested some permitting on a temporary stream crossing bridge. So this counts as a new RDA. Do you want to read a notice, please?
All right, let's see. Fletcher Boyle requests the commission make a decision regarding a request for determination of applicability to maintain a temporary footbridge over Sawmill Brook at 6 Putnam Court and 45R School Street.
And Sean, is this one yours or Jesse?
It's me. Good evening. My name is Jesse Blanchette. I'm with Griffin Engineering out of Beverly. I believe I see the owner and applicant Fletcher on the call as well. The Boyle family has owned this property at 6 Putnam Court and 45R School Street for several generations now. They've continuously depended upon a temporary footbridge to access the portion of the property on the other side of Sawmill Brook, which is essentially landlocked and not accessible. The current footbridge, as was shown in at the meeting, I believe it was on August 6th, it just consists simply of a 2x12 plank supported by an aluminum ladder. It spans about 12.5 feet, and on one end it's supported by the concrete retaining wall that was recently installed, and on the other side it rests on the ground surface. Mr. Boyle typically installs the temporary footbridge in the spring and removes it in the fall, and he also closely monitors the weather and stream flow and removes the bridge if necessary during extreme storm events. So the temporary bridge doesn't result in any removal, filling, dredging, or altering of resource areas. The bridge spans over land underwater. It also spans over the inland bank. It is located within bordering land subject to flooding. But as I mentioned before, the bridge is temporary in nature and removed when need be in the event of storm events. I also would like to note that the stream crossing standards, I've reviewed them. I've reviewed the handbook, and it's noted in the handbook that the stream crossing standards are not applicable to temporary footbridges, but more permanent structures. The Boyle family has demonstrated for many years excellent stewardship of their property. They've the Sawmill Brook, they've frequently have removed debris from the brook, trash, etc. And they also do timely remove the bridge and monitor and the activity of the stream. And they would be the first ones to not want to have any obstructions in the stream causing backwatering and impacting their own property and their neighbors' properties. So the bridge is removed and is only temporary in nature. So to that end, we respectfully request the commission's assistance in maintaining access to the very idyllic part of the Boyle property, which he frequently enjoys and cherishes. Are there any questions?
I'm kind of curious, being a wordsmith myself. Do the standards for stream crossing define what is temporary and what is permanent?
It does not have a section of definitions, but it does say temporary, such as logging roads, etc. It does indicate permanent structures such as railroad crossings, regular road crossings, and bike paths. But does not say anything about footbridges.
Yeah, it just struck me that when I think of the notion of a temporary bridge, I think of it as put down for a more or less one-time purpose, such as construction or logging, and removed when that purpose is finished. In this case, it's to provide access on a more or less continual basis seasonally. So it kind of falls squarely in between what I would think of as a true temporary structure and a true permanent structure, because obviously it lacks some of the footings and establishment of something we call permanent. So that doesn't help me very much, except to say I don't know where it falls. Can anybody help me out on this front?
I just want to add, I'm totally shocked that we're hearing this. This is not a safe structure, and we've been told that children routinely use this structure. And for us to give any type of approval on this seems crazy to me. So I'm very much opposed to this.
Could I speak to that issue?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I watch the activity across the brook all the time. There are kids that come and play, and today there were 4 or 5 of them out there looking for frogs. Every one of them knows my rules. They call me Mr. Fletcher, and they know my rules, and their parents know my rules. They're not allowed to come down without a parent if they're too small. And if they come down, they're not to go anywhere near the bridge. And they all know it, and they all respect what I have to say. It is private property, and I do maintain a fairly significant insurance policy on the property.
They're trespassing.
So essentially, they're trespassing on my property. So, I mean, I allow it, and Steve, as you know, we do get together on an annual spring burn up behind your old house, and all the neighbors get involved, and it's
it's an absolutely delightful place to hang out and play. And if I was a kid, I would be there most afternoons.
I was out there when I was 2 or 3 years old, so
yeah, exactly.
Steve, I'm perfectly comfortable with this.
Yeah, so am I.
Well, I agree with Henry that it's not the safest structure. In fact, it's far from it.
Is that for
many
us?
adults, but that's not for us to decide. We protect wetland resources, not human resources.
Mr. Chair, Steve, I guess my question is about the impact to the bank of the placement and removal of this long ladder. You know, I don't know if perhaps the applicant could speak to that, but I'm a little concerned about trying to drag this ladder back over. Does it scrape along the bank? Is it getting stuck in the stream as that's happening? What's the process to do that in a minimally impactful way?
I'll speak to that. Sure. The first thing I do is slide the plank off the ladder, which slides very easily and gets out of the way, reduces the weight. And I leverage the part that's on the wall by pushing down on it and pulling back at the same time. That takes the part that's on the bank up and pull it away, so it doesn't drag down the bank. And if you visit the site anytime, you can see that the site is not disturbed by my moving the ladder.
Yeah.
Other questions? And just in case there's anyone in the public who has a comment on 6 Putnam Court. On the ladder bridge.
Steve, I'd like to raise the issue. In a different property that was completely surrounded by a brook, a temporary bridge like this was put into play, and we did not allow it. And I'm not sure what the difference is. I understand that this is something that's been a tradition in the neighborhood and on this property for many, many, many years. But as the Conservation Commission, we did not allow such a temporary bridge on a property that we've discussed many times.
You're talking about the Pine Street property?
I'm talking about the Pine Street property.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fair. And the applicant then replaced it with an unpermitted permanent crossing. Right.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. So I would ask the Mr. Boyle, how deep is the water beneath the bridge right now?
4 inches.
It's
And
been
how many
growing.
feet, 4 inches deep, and how many feet above the water is the ladder?
Oh, I don't know. I'm guessing it's maybe 4 feet. What do you think, Jeff?
My guess too. 4 feet.
Say about 4 feet.
I lived on that brook for 30 years downstream of it, and most of the year it is pretty low. The most dangerous time is in the spring and during those extremely rare rainstorms when it becomes a torrent. And that certainly would be a danger to any child, even to an adult at times. But my experience with the stream where we lived, and it sounds like where you live, it is only a couple inches deep, it could actually be walked across. And in fact, the bottom is not even particularly muddy where I am. It was where I was. It's mainly a little bit gravelly. Is that a concern for the kids to walk across if there was no ladder there? Would the embankment be a problem?
I guess I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well,
If the
would
water's up, the ladder's gone, so that's not an issue for kids anyway, because they know they can't go on it.
Right.
This past spring, I've forgotten whether it was April or May, when we had that fairly significant rainstorm, the bridge was removed by myself way before it became an issue.
Yeah, David, in answer to your question, there is a slope down at the very end of, if you continued straight down where Putnam Court runs, which I believe is on your property, Fletcher, but I'm not entirely sure. And that takes you down to the stream bed level. And then on the other side, it's a very shallow bank. The issue is that the water isn't always 4 inches high. So even if we permitted this kind of a stepping stone arrangement as we do in trails in the woods, that wouldn't necessarily function when the stream is high but not stormy.
And it's not altogether a sandy bottom there. There's rocks, there's things that, if I were to try to walk across and trip, I mean, that would be a real serious problem for me.
Okay. Well, I feel that we're all wrestling with some sort of unexpected dilemma here. Anybody have a Solomonic solution?
I really think that they've gone beyond necessary with the RDA, and I really think we're overthinking it and we're dealing with safety, and that is not our purview. So we need to proceed to vote.
Yeah.
Olga, how does this differ from from 68 Pond.
It doesn't differ, and if that one comes to us, we'll have to deal with this one. We don't know
Say
how
that's-
that's structured. I sent you all a link to footbridges and things like that. So I think that we are really beyond the scope of our jurisdiction here.
Yeah, I would just say, Jeff, I think with regard to that other property, the applicant, said they weren't going to build a structure and then they did. So I think that's still an ongoing issue. And had they brought to us a proposal for a permanent structure, we would have reviewed that as a permanent structure, right?
It's not a permanent structure.
What's that?
This is not a permanent structure.
Right, and that's what I think is the difference, right? The applicant went ahead and put in a permanent structure and at the other property.
And Gordon, without being reviewed.
Right,
So
right.
there are standards.
Well, I'm just
for
going to add that I think that one solution on the far end of the spectrum is if a crossing is what Mr. Boyle desires, have an engineer design a crossing that's structurally sound, safe for children, safe for adults, and bring it before us as an NOI.
I disagree. We have to deal with what is before us.
Right. So one possibility I'm toying with is a set of conditions on a negative determination that say, don't leave this in place for a period of more than a couple of days. Use it when you need it and retract it when you're not using it. Because I think our issue here in terms of the resource has more to do with the structure sitting there kind of waiting for something bad to happen on the coastal bank, on the riverbank, leaving aside safety and human issues completely. But it's, in other words, it's not necessarily just a storm that would cause some problems here. The structure could fail on its own because they do over time if they're not built to permanent crossing standards. It could be struck by unusual debris or by falling limbs. It's kind of a problem waiting to happen in terms of protecting the resource. That said, it's also a useful solution and maybe the most practical one, historical one certainly, for the property owner. So the compromise might be put it down when you're going to use it. If it's a long weekend or, a 2-week vacation, you have children who are going to go back and forth. Other times, pull it up.
That sounds sensible to me, Steve.
Make it temporary is what let's call it, make it what it's called.
That's adding.
So
I don't feel like imposing that.
That's adding a lot of inconvenience for me. Steve.
Yes, I think that's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
So what the RDA is asking, they checked off 2 boxes. One is they're asking whether the activities depicted on the plan referenced is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. And the second part is whether the area and or activities depicted on the plans are subject to the municipal wetlands bylaw. So those are the 2 things that you need to answer for this. If that helps.
I mean, the answer is clearly yes. This is a structure that has immediate and continual and potential impact to the bank. There can't be any question about that. The question is whether we can issue a negative determination because the impact we estimate is small enough.
Right.
That's what we do with every RDA. You put a footing down in a buffer zone. Well, it's small. It's not going to disrupt water flow or cause damage to habitat, but it's still clearly measurable impact.
So would you like to continue this and ask for a redesign instead of just making a positive or negative determination?
I'd really like to dispose of this tonight. I think we've all lingered on this too long already. So if my suggestion is ridiculous, does anybody have a better one?
I think that what the applicant has presented is perfectly reasonable. It's been there for a long time. Is there any evidence that the bank has been in any way damaged?
Just
Right,
say,
the bank is concrete on one side, so it's not affected at all by this. And on the other side, as Mr. Boyle described, there's care used in removing it to not damage the bank.
Well, to be perfectly honest, the other side of the bank was fairly regularly vegetated until some years ago when Mr. Boyle removed a lot of the vegetation there. I don't know if it was native or invasive. So where there was a vegetated buffer strip along the stream, there is no longer. It's just moss and soil, a few shrubs here and there. So I'm not sure whether you'd call that a consequence of the bridge or something that's associated with the bridge, but certainly the bank as a wetland resource is not as healthy as it was, say, 10 years ago.
But is
Maybe
it
that,
because of the
maybe
bridge?
sorry.
Is it because of the bridge?
Well,
Yeah.
the bridge enables use of that land. The land has been cleared for that use. So I would say they are connected, yes. If the bridge were not as convenient, I think the land would be used as it is for more special occasions. Not that we're in the business of limiting that, but if you want to use it regularly, as David and Henry have said, we have plenty of ways for you to build a less or more expensive proper stream crossing. Lots of other people have done it. We've permitted them.
But given the flooding in the area, the flooding throughout the whole property, a permanent bridge is not, in my opinion, the best solution. A temporary bridge that can be removed, you got no obstructions in the floodway at that point, is the best
It's
solution.
not clear that it's not, from the reaction to my suggestion, it's not clear that it can be easily removed. Sounds like it's a seasonal thing that requires, kind of like the old fashioned way of taking all your screens off your house and putting all your storm windows on it. It's not a simple step. You wouldn't do it every week. So maybe the solution here is to permit this with a stipulation that you make a sincere effort to find a more conveniently removable crossing method than a aluminum ladder and a piece of dimensional lumber.
I would suggest that additional, the vegetation on the bank be added back in some way, something that would hold the bank together all along it, not in addition to where the ladder comes across.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that as well. The area does flood pretty heavily. So it's difficult for material to stay attached there, but a lot of it had managed to do it.
In looking at the bank, I don't believe the bank looks any different in the vicinity of the ladder and the area that has the moss than it does upstream or downstream. The bank
Yeah, I agree with that.
is a natural earth cut bank. There's been no impacts by what has been done there.
No, it's not the bridge itself. You're right. But
Nor
we
use of the
always
ladder.
we always recommend a vegetated buffer along riverfront. And the fact that once upon a time this was buffered and now it is less buffered. I'm amenable to asking for some native restoration along the bank, much as you did on the other side on your property. So someone want to form a motion here?
Before a motion is formed, Steve, I just want to reiterate my feeling on this and hear some discussion. We're discussing a temporary bridge, which consists of a ladder and a board. My thought was, if I owned the property, I would be agreeable to a temporary bridge, but I would, as a homeowner, be amenable to the idea of removing the bridge when it's not in use, and then putting back the bridge only when it's being used, especially when children are involved. The idea of leaving it there all summer, I don't like that idea.
Unless there's a storm
So
coming,
that's my feeling.
good. I really feel that's an.
Olga, I think we've heard your position. We understand it. Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? Because you talked about.
Sure, but I'd
special-
also I'd like to hear from, I guess I have heard from everybody except perhaps Sari. So go ahead.
Well,
Please.
You mentioned some, putting back for special occasions or whatever. I enjoy my morning cup of coffee over there quite often. That I have a plastic chair over there leaning up against a tree so it doesn't collect water. And I go over and I enjoy a cup of coffee by the stream bed quite often. And to ask me to put the ladder out and move across, take my coffee and then move it back and do it 2 days later is just not realistic. I want to be able to enjoy my property.
Understood.
I feel like, Steve, the thing we're all grappling with is it's a temporary structure according to the application that's not so temporary, right? It's a removable structure, but it's used on a pretty permanent basis.
Yeah, we would generally call this a seasonal structure, not a temporary structure.
And, I'm feeling like it is subject to the wetlands, to our jurisdiction. It's clearly on the bank, like you said. I am not seeing a lot of damage to the bank right now. I don't love the safety issues, but I'm not seeing a lot of damage to the bank. I guess what the bridge enables is access to the bank, which probably has some wear and tear on the buffer zone, but people should be able to enjoy the wetlands, I suppose. I'm a little worried about the effects of having it removed, in that, you've got a neighborhood of kids that are enjoying getting over there, and they may still seek to get over there, and that may cause additional damage to the banks. Yeah.
According to the applicant, the kids are not allowed to use it.
Okay.
So
All right.
It's not, that shouldn't be an
tricky
issue.
thing. I mean, it feels like it should probably be done, under whatever the permanent guidelines would be, even if it's removable. But I think we're struggling with that because we don't really understand this definition, what's permanent and what's temporary, right?
Correct. And the next, we set a precedent here that anybody can drop a piece of heavy dimensional lumber across that stream, provided they own property on both sides. And we know that we don't want that as the prevailing rule.
It's not our issue.
Yeah.
Because not everybody will be as careful as Mr. Boyle.
So, Kristen, is there anything in the Wetlands Protection Act about that people are not allowed a footbridge across their property, across the stream?
Not allowed? No, I think it may, if I'm remembering right, it may come under the exempt minor projects, but I'm not sure. But under the bylaws, that there's no exceptions, but under the Wetlands Protection Act, I think things like this they don't rise to the level of DEP caring about it, really.
They're treated as limited projects under a notice of intent. So.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about the minor projects one, but
Closest analogy I can think of is the bridge that was reconstructed considerably, basically a new bridge across Wolf Trap Brook, going from a property on Summer Street over toward Ocean Street. That's a crossing that most of the time, it's tidal, but most of the time requires a bridge if you don't want to get wet. And it has sensitive wetland and a bank around it. And I don't think there's any circumstances in which, and people cross it for, daily outings, or it's on private property. I don't think we would ever consider a request to just put down a rude crossing, whatever you want to call the piece of wood across that span. Except for, if somebody had to take a couple of wheelbarrows of material across it and for another project, and then they removed it immediately, then it would be temporary. So I'm struggling because you say it's used continually during the nice season. Why it should be a temporary bridge? Why not go back and go to the trouble as all other property owners with your situation have done, and build a bridge that matches modern, I hate to say this because of your history in the place, but a bridge that matches modern standards.
Well, my definition, Steve, would be a temporary bridge is one that can be removed. A permanent bridge is one that's got footings, etc., that cannot be removed. That actually needs a structural dismantling, not just a pickup of a board and a ladder.
That's a possible definition.
Yeah.
How about something that can be removed but is not? So it just sits there and people use it. Would you call that temporary?
I would, because it's
I
being,
would, if it can be removed.
yes.
Okay.
I think if we lean that way, we just have to be comfortable that this is going to be all over
Yeah, I
town.
think this is not a solution I want to live with down the road. That particular definition really worries me.
Does the commission want to table this until the next meeting to have a little more time to sit with it and work out what direction you want to go? Or do you want to wrap this up?
I don't know where else we can go.
I'm very much inclined to wrap it up, but I noticed that
Let's wrap it up.
we're faced with an applicant here who's giving us a all or nothing. So we have to decide whether we permit it as a quote temporary crossing under its current conditions, maybe with some conditions or not, or we just say no, do what everyone else in the situation does.
But to ask him to do a permanent structure to access the other side of his property is far more damaging to the resources that we're trying to protect than what this is doing. Especially since he says in his letter,
I
and
don't
we
agree with you,
certainly-
Olga. I don't
That's
agree
a question that's a question of fact, Olga. I don't think any of us know the answer to that.
Can I ask a question? Of the
One side has a concrete footing already. It's hard to believe the other side couldn't support an equally stable footing if it was properly permitted. But anyway, facts, we can find out. Jeff, go ahead.
I'd like to ask the applicant a question. Why are you bringing this up at this point? This is something that's existed for
We asked him to.
a long time. Why was he asked to bring it up?
Because most of us were uncomfortable with the fact that it's there more often than not. So
He's looking for a certificate of compliance, right, for the other.
Yeah, for the retaining wall work and plantings.
And then we noticed that the bridge was there and we asked him to do an RDA and he did an RDA and now we're still futzing.
And from what I understand, the ladder was there during the notice of intent for the wall. So it wasn't like it was suddenly different from what had been presented before.
No, I remember some of the commissioners were comfortable traipsing across it and some of the commissioners were not.
But it's been there.
But it's been there,
right?
Yes. There's no question it's historical.
Secret.
All right, well, under these circumstances, I think it's probably prudent to put this off 2 weeks, with apologies to the owner and the engineers who've,
Steve,
as long as this is all or nothing, you've done everything that you can.
One more thought. What if the committee was to issue a certificate of compliance for the wall and with no discussion at all about the ladder?
I can't tell.
we could have done
Pretend the issue didn't even appear. No?
Was there
I
urgency?
can't do it, Tim.
Is there urgency in the need for a CFC? Refinancing or selling, some other legal proceeding that requires that to be recorded?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. If the property were to be sold, would the applicant seriously leave a ladder spanning that?
Becomes a
that's,
non-issue.
brook
Yeah.
Not a
in
non,
place?
not a non-issue.
Yeah, and if this were anybody else, say someone who had just purchased this house in the last few years, would we have the same feelings about this kind of temporary crossing? I would not.
I assure you, the next owner of this home will be my son, Brady Boyle, who currently lives in Wenham and has 2 wonderful children.
Nice. That's their institution then.
So I guess the question was, do you
Let's
need a
just vote it.
certificate of compliance? What? What's that, Henry?
I think we should just vote it.
Yeah. We don't have to be unanimous in our vote.
No, we don't. We definitely don't.
Differing
we
opinions.
All right. If the commission's ready to vote,
Yes.
I don't want to be the one to hold that up. Olga, it sounds like it's your motion.
Well, I will move, it's a -3, right, Kristen? That we issue a
I think it's
negative.
both 2 and 3 because it's
negative
resource
2
and buffer.
-3, -3, 2 and 3 to 6 Putnam Court and 45 Rear School Street, map 50, lot 31 and 49.
Second,
Okay. All those
Mr.
in
Chair,
favor?
would you just review what an affirmative vote means and what a negative vote means?
Yes, if you vote in favor of this motion, you are saying that although this bridge touches the resource, in your judgment, the way it's used doesn't pose any negative impact to the resource.
Thank you.
And therefore, we're saying that wetlands law at the state level and the local level do not apply. If you vote against it, you're saying you think there's potential for impact that's large enough that the laws do apply, and a notice of intent would be required.
And
Thank
in our discussion about the slippery slope of this happening everywhere over town would in theory also need to come with an RDA and could be assessed on a case-by-case basis as to whether it's having an impact on the bank or not.
True. True. And RDAs are the place to start if you're not sure about whether it needs a notice of intent.
So we're not saying
Yes.
yes
It's
to
always the
everything in
first
town.
step.
It's just a question about this particular one.
Yeah,
and is it-
that's technically true, but in truth, most of these situations are out of sight. They'll be behind somebody's home where there are stream crosses such as at Gilbert's or 68 Vine or
we are not
Wellman's.
regulating things that are out of sight, or trying to control things.
We have a
that-
motion and we're starting to get into
Yeah.
discussion again. I think we need to vote on the motion.
Yeah.
I agree.
Need a clarification about what a positive or a negative was.
So with that in mind, Olga, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sari?
Aye.
Henry?
Nay.
David?
Nay.
Josh?
Aye.
Gordon?
Nay.
Oh dear. This is the reason I wanted to postpone it.
Rubber's at
I
the
will-
road, Dave.
I will vote nay. That's why they pay me the big bucks. So it is 4 nays, 3 ayes. And we are not granting a negative determination. Kristen, do we have to proceed to vote on a positive determination in this situation, or can we just leave this?
I would say it's probably best to make it clear that it's a positive determination. And for what reason?
All right. Then I'll move that this is, that we issue a positive determination on this RDA because of the cumulative and potential impact to the river, stream bank and riverfront area. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's do this again. All those in favor? Gordon. A favorable vote here, just to clarify, means that we recognize there is impact, and that an NOI or in fact a better solution would be in order. Gordon.
Aye.
Jeff.
Nay.
Henry.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Olga.
Nay.
Sari.
Nay.
And I'm an aye, so we are consistent at least. Okay, folks, that was no fun. Apologize for taking so long and coming out, obviously where the applicant does not want us to be. But thanks for the effort. We have 2 certificates of compliance, the first of which will sound familiar. It's 6 Putnam Court and 45R School Street. This one is DEP file 39-833. And this was the retaining wall and replanting along Sawmill Brook on this property. Is there anything to add? This was briefed, but Jesse, if you have anything else to say, please.
No, it's Jesse from Griffin Engineering still. Yeah, my recollection from the August 6th meeting, there was no concerns with the wall, there was no concerns with the mitigation plannings. Everything was satisfactory. It was just the issue of the bridge. So
As well.
Questions?
Questions, comments? Henry. Go ahead, Henry.
Thanks, Steve. So obviously we just spent a lot of time with the bridge. What is the implication on, I mean, I have no problem with the retaining wall and the plantings. What is the implication if we vote positively? Does that include the structures that are there like the bridge?
I don't believe the structure was part of the order of conditions.
No, it wasn't.
I think
but
it just happened to be there.
It wasn't, so our vote does not, on this certificate of compliance, is unrelated to the bridge.
Right. The bridge
Okay.
now is an unpermitted
Everybody's
structure.
clear on that? That makes sense.
I think
so.
I can probably
Kristen?
add a note in there and when I issue the COC that says does not include
Yeah,
this
that would be
the
great.
structure and reference the RDA vote or
It'll be
permit.
good. Thank you.
I think we need to do that.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we issue a complete certificate of compliance for 6 Putnam Court 45R School, DEP file 39-833, with the stipulation that Kristen just mentioned regarding the stream crossing and the other bank and the RDA.
And I'll second that.
Second. Any friendly amendments, Sari? Good.
Excuse me?
All those in favor? Gordon? That looked like an aye, but a silent one.
Was an aye.
Thank you. David?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Olga?
Aye.
Sari?
Aye.
And I will make that unanimous. 7 in favor of the certificate of compliance. Thanks again, Jesse and Fletcher.
Thank you.
The last certificate of compliance is 102. Yeah, 102 Bridge Street, map 21, lot 1, DEP file 39873, which was removal of a swimming pool at Rebecca Campbell's. This one is new.
Removal of a retaining wall. I thought it was.
Removal of a, yeah, it's removal of a retaining wall. Sorry. I'm hallucinating. We have previously opened this or at least discussed it, haven't we? In any event, there's no materials in my packet. I must have them from prior.
It was scheduled for the last meeting, and
Gotcha.
Dan wasn't able to attend, so we pushed to this one.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, thank you for being patient if you're still here.
Yes,
There
Mr.
you
Chairman, Commissioners. I think this will be quicker and less anxiety producing than some of your other agenda items this evening. So thank you in advance for your time. Rebecca Campbell purchased 102 Bridge Street a few years ago, and there was a large retaining wall in the backyard. It's about 6 or 8 feet high. It posed a safety hazard. Commission authorized us to remove that and just grade out the backyard. And in return, we offered a number of native species plantings. You had requested that we wait 2 growing seasons, and that's what we did. So at the end of last growing season, we had a landscape specialist review all of the plantings to make sure they were intact, and you have a report to indicate that. And now we're approaching the end of this growing season. Everything is healthy and stable. You have photographs to indicate that, and obviously I can share those with you as well if you would like.
I remember them. Questions or comments from the commission?
No. Very
All
straightforward, as you said.
It is. Ready to vote?
Yes.
I did a site visit a couple days ago, and there's still some like plastic debris from the erosion control, the silt sock things. So if that can be removed, it's just kind of in the grass and buried a little bit. So just get that out of there because it's trash.
Understood. Yes. Yep.
Otherwise looks stable and vegetated. Good. Okay, let me move we issue a complete certificate of compliance for 102 Bridge Street, DEP file 39-873. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? David?
Aye.
Olga?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Sari?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. Thank you, Dan.
Of course. Thank you so much for your time, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Now we can move to our ever-growing list of new other old business. But let's try to be let's try to set priorities on what we talk about here so we don't go all night. First on the list is beaver obstructions, and that is the subject of some work on Saturday morning, right, Jeff?
Yes, MECT requested approval of I think it was a letter permit, I'm not sure, to remove the organic debris that had been left at the boardwalk on Cedar Swamp, because it was potentially damaging to the boardwalk itself and undermining the structure. A crew has been gathered. We have materials, we have enough people, and Saturday morning, that material will be removed from the swamp and along the boardwalk and left on Old School Street. I've been in touch with Chuck Dam about picking it up, and I've been in touch with Black Earth about removing it to the compost area and having them compost it.
That'll be a big improvement, and it'll also give us a chance to look at the functioning of that beaver deceiver and fencing, which looked fine 2 weeks ago, but you never can tell. Next is open space maintenance funds. Nothing new on that. Open Space and Recreation Committee meeting update. Well, you heard the good news from Greenbelt, and thank you for endorsing that exemplary project and proposal. It would be a first for our CPC to grant any significant amount of money for land protection, but that is one of the purposes of the CPA money. So I'm sure they're going to consider it seriously.
Well, and I think it speaks well for the project that so much of the funds have already been assembled before coming to the CPC. So
Yes, exactly. And it might pave the way even for some CPC participation in the protection of the so-called Gordon Woods, which are equally attractive as recreation, but also serve as our watershed for Manchester's reservoir.
Steve, if I may, just very
Yeah,
briefly.
go ahead.
At the Open Space and Recreation meeting, I gave an update on the erosion on the Crooked Lane fire trail access. I'd had a conversation with the fire chief about this, and there's been a regional effort to come up with a plan for wildfire control, and he's well aware of the erosion on that road and the problems of access that it creates, and has explained that now that they've completed their report, they're now going after money, and that if they're successful in getting money, repair of that fire road is one of his two top priorities for wildfire control, and would create a much better access point for both walkers and perhaps mountain bikers. That's going to happen within 18 months to 2 years.
Excellent. The stream team met last night and added one potential argument in favor of the highest level of protection for Sawmill Brook, which is now the state has documented the presence of sea-run brook trout, which are very rare, apparently. And if the state grants this high level of protection, it would have important repercussions for protecting things like Shingle Place Hill, and also probably some repercussions for the storm sewer system in Manchester, which a lot of which discharges into Sawmill Brook. But we'll, forgive me, cross that bridge when we get to it. Memorial School Causeway Brook cleanup. Is there a sign of life there?
nothing new to report.
Okay. Filing fees. Anything new
Hasn't
from-
been a priority. So I'm trying to unbury myself from other things, and that's least of my priorities right now.
Okay. Knotweed, Pine Street. I noticed that some of it is dying up, and that may be the effect of drought, although the stuff is so resilient. I don't know.
In a conversation that I had today with Andrew Brousseau from Black Earth, who's the manager, he said that that they were capable of composting knotweed and other invasives, and that the temperatures in their facility inside get up to 160, and that they have authorization to present a certificate of destruction for knotweed and other invasive plants.
That's remarkable.
So there's a fee for that for commercial companies that are handling this material. And the town is not subject to that fee.
Well, that's promising.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
Who grants them that authority to declare that they can destruct the knotweed? Do you know where that comes from? Is there some regulatory thing, or?
I don't know. He said he talked
Yeah.
about a certificate of destruction.
That's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You think that will make it
So
more attractive?
before we advertise to the community that they can put this material out, he wants more time to get his operations settled, and requested that nothing be brought to the facility before the spring, and that we would have a notice and maybe advertise about it.
Mhm.
I can add that I talked or emailed Mike DeRosa and Brian Colleran about coordinating some kind of review of the documentation we want to put out for this, or the advice. Mike was ready to do that sooner rather than later, and Brian wouldn't really be available till like mid-October. So I thought, well, things are kind of going into the dormant state anyways, as we're going into fall, winter. So if it's not a huge emergency, we could hold off on that and then coordinate with Andrew as well on what that certificate of destruction means. So maybe between the three of them, we could get some kind of plan together that is what do we call it? Complete, like, thorough.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you get a sense that, sorry, Steve, can I ask a question?
Please.
Did you get a sense that Andrew needs any special notice if somebody's bringing knotweed to his facility, or if would it be
He
okay
said
if
to
people
me
just
at the end of our
unknowingly?
after we had talked about this a little bit, he was at first pretty proud and engaged with the fact that the facility is capable of putting knotweed out of commission from his description of the process. And I did a little research on that, and 145 seems to be the maximum temperature for all invasives. His facility apparently goes to 160. But at the end of our conversation, he said, let's not put a big advertisement out about this. At this point, I'd like to have a separate area that we could put invasives in.
I see. So he'd like to
and
sort
a
of
collection area for the public, rather than having people just throw it in.
Mix it in with the brush.
Throw it in with brush and other debris.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I think we still need to give people advice about how to remove it and transport it. Because if they dig down and try to remove all the rhizomes, which would be admirable, then they have the most dangerous cargo. You don't want to spill it out the back of your pickup.
And I'd like to add or ask, I think we need to anticipate that some of these areas are going to be very close to wetlands, and what permitting or what type of permitting you would want to see from people who are going to be removing a lot of this knotweed once it becomes something that catches on, people want to get done.
Good
Just
point.
something to think about.
Yeah, I can imagine someone after 2 years of trying to just cut it back and finding it grows back thicker and stronger each time.
Or if
Giving
they
up
have
and
to dig out
dousing it
a
with-
certain area with all the rhizomes, they're going to be creating a lot of disturbed area.
Correct.
And then what how you want them to replant it or mitigate, or maybe the removal itself is mitigation, you know, there's some things to think about.
On the positive side, the stream team reported that by removing the flowering tops of loosestrife, which they've been doing around Dexter Pond, they're actually inhibiting the that invasive, which of course is its most attractive feature. It's only attractive feature. But it's as usual, it's a tedious process. Anything new on archiving recordings? I think so. And we've heard about Long Hill, Essex County.
Eva, did you want to jump in on the recordings part of it?
I wasn't here last week, so I don't know what you talked about. So
I think we just put it off for you to weigh in on it.
We did.
Oh, okay. So there had been discussion about saving the recordings from these meetings, which are not done once the minutes are posted. And but it is done for other boards like planning board, ZBA. I think select board, there's a YouTube channel where they are saved, I guess indefinitely. So the question, it has to be approved by the committee if that is something that you want done.
Right. Well, my opinion was it's a good idea to keep it because we don't know which ones may generate controversy leading to appeals to DEP or even lawsuits down the road. Nowadays, digital storage is not complicated or expensive. So unless, Eva, you find out that we're up against some kind of limitation in whatever cloud facility we're using, YouTube channel or Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever. I'd like to move, we ask for, I don't know, 3-year retention of everything that's digital, including the recordings.
Second.
Ready to vote?
Do we know what this costs? And
We
who's
do
gonna
not.
pay for it?
Well, the town would be paying for it. I assume as part of the IT budget. Does that sound right, Eva and Kristen?
I would agree, yes.
All right, all those in favor? David?
Aye.
Olga?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
3.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you. Now, letter permits, tree permits, emergency certs.
We
Initiation.
talked about the Powder Hill DPW tree removal last week, correct? I think we did.
Just refresh my memory. What side of Powder House Hill are we talking about?
Let's see, I'll try to bring it up. There's- Mm.
Most likely along Elm Street.
Is this as a result of my having taken Mark there for a walk and he noticed that there's some tree work that's
No,
needed?
this has to do with, this came from DPW directly. Let me just see. Met with somebody named Kathy Bellata.
She's a select board member.
Okay. 3 dead ash trees. HOA.
Homeowners
could get-
Association.
Yeah. Let me get back to that one in a minute.
Okay, any other items on that heading?
I can tell you that Old Essex Street and Pleasant Street, Old Essex Road and Pleasant Street, the DPW work there is going to be starting tomorrow. I'm doing the pre-construction meeting with, the contractor, so just
The
FYI on that
culvert,
one.
Yep.
Yeah,
What DPW work are you referring to?
it was
Water
water
main
sewer
replacement.
replacement.
Yep, which includes a culvert for
It was from,
sawmill.
it was from like April, May.
The culvert runs under Old Essex.
Okay.
Okay. Any expenditure approvals? for us?
Steve, did you want to go over Jack's proposal?
Yes, I do. And we also have some, at least one enforcement issue to talk about.
Why don't we deal with that? Because I think Mr. Fahmy is on the call.
Ah, okay. Good catch. So several of you noted at our last meeting last week on Tuesday that there was work going on to demo a portion of 7 Central Street. And you asked whether there was a permit or an outstanding order of conditions for that. And I think Kristen found the answer was no and has now notified the contractor.
So a little backstory on that. I actually signed off on the permit to do that work. I don't remember signing off on it, but I did. And it was presented as a demolition of the addition because of the rotted beam or something. I don't know. Somehow I thought it was maybe interior. Maybe I just didn't realize that I selected that approve button, but that's on me. It's not the contractor.
I see.
I did speak to them twice. Once on Friday, I spoke to the general contractor Anderson, and then he gave me Junior Rebello's contact information. I talked to him as well. And then there was a subcontractor that you saw working out there on Monday.
Sunday. Yep. Sunday it was actually.
Yeah, but I wasn't there until Monday morning. So yeah, I told them, you know, that they had to stop work. So as far as I know, they've stopped as of, I mean, the subcontractor now knows and stopped. So now the question is, how do you want them to correct this, or how do you want me to advise them to correct this?
Well, when you say they've stopped, Kristen, that whole area is now looks completed.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is
So
like,
is there more work to be done?
Not sure. There might be a little bit of finished work to do, but that's something that the contractor could tell you about.
Mr. Flamia, is that what brings you here tonight?
Yes, it does. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. How are you? I've been
Thanks for
been
coming.
waiting patiently. I know you have a full evening. Thank you for your time too, by the way. May I, Commissioners, share my screen?
Certainly.
I want to tell you beforehand, I'm not too technical, so if something blanks out, I apologize. Let's see. Can you see that or?
No, not yet. So you need to hit the green button and then choose what it is you want to share and hit the share button.
Well, I guess I won't be doing that.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Never fun.
Well, listen, now I won't be able to, sorry. My son kind of left me here.
Just gonna ask, is there anyone under the age of 15 in your house?
I apologize. So
Listen, we, now I can't see any of you, so sorry about that again to everyone. You know, I was gonna share a photo, not that, I don't know if it has any, I was gonna share a photo of the picture of the 7 Central Street. It was built in, to give a little history, it was built in 1754. And then it was the top portion that looks like a bent roof line that was built in 1779. We recently started doing some discovery demolition inside. We noticed one of the beams on the exterior completely rotted. If anyone passes by there, you can take a look at it. We've shorted up with some what's called LVL in the industry. It's a supportive beam. And we did file immediately for a demo permit at that time. I'm sorry, I don't know if you can't see your face, but I think Krista had signed off on it. I understand she didn't mean to, or we immediately ripped down the portion of the building that was built in I'd say it was 1968 to 1972, which what you would call the right-hand side of the building, which was, I guess, with the old bar there. My intention, and I know this is not for the commission, you know, for the Conservation Commission, but my intention is just to put it back the way it used to look in 1779. As you can, I don't know if it's correct to say, but I've done that with a few other buildings in town. Chair, if you allow me to just speak a little bit on what I've done in the town there, would that be okay?
Sure. I suspect most people are familiar, but if you can be brief, be great.
We did 11 Central Street, which was built in 1884. We put it back exactly the way it was built. We go to the historical museum in town. We get the oldest picture possible, and we just replicate what that picture shows. We did the same to 2 School Street. We've done the same to 38 Union, 9 Ashland, 1 School Street. We're in the process of doing the same thing. It was built, that was actually built in 1725, the back portion of it. The front portion was around 1799, 1800. And now we're at the 7 Central Street. And our intention of doing the same thing, again, putting it back to the way it used to look in 1779. And we did put a cobblestone driveway on, cobblestone, just a patio. And I'm sure we'll fulfill it with, you know, some flowers with the boxes that we do around all the other buildings throughout the seasons. I don't know what, you know, I'm in a situation now, I don't know what to do. We have a permit, but we did stop construction. It was told to us to stop, and we immediately stopped. And we'd like to complete there's another piece of granite curbing that we'd like to just place there. Just, it's at the front, it's near the sidewalk, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, let me ask, are you increasing the impervious surface over what it was before you demoed the bar?
We demoed the bar area, and I'd say we actually decreased, right? Because we've added all to, you know, with putting the cobblestone in the space to probably about 2 inches or 1.5 inches, I believe, spaced in between each one. If that's what you're asking for. And, you know, I can't share the screen here, but if at any time someone likes, I'd like for someone, if you could, I know that, I think, Kristen, maybe you walked behind 7 Central and
I
behind
did, yeah.
School Street. What my concern is, you know, and this is a concern for all of us, I believe, that I feel like, I don't know the name of the brook we have there called, but behind the fire station, 6 School Street, it seems like it's really coming along, you know, it's falling in a lot faster than it has in the last, you know, I've owned that building probably for now, I'd say, not 7 Central, but 11 Central Street. I've owned it since 2000 and maybe 15, I think 15, 16. I feel like that wall is caving in a lot, and that's just, not just behind my properties, but all the way up near the fire station. I'm sure you're well aware of it, but that is a little bit of a concern of mine. But you know, 7 Central, yes, I'm done with the demolition. I've put in, you know, I've removed the 70s bar, let's call it, and I'm going to put the building back the way it used to look.
Right. So without seeing your plans, I don't think we can advise you on exactly what kind of permit you need, but at this stage, it would be what we call an after the fact permit, which would just put into the record what you have done and anything else you're planning to do. The 7 Central within the riverfront. I think the whole building is probably within the inner riverfront zone. So it's jurisdictional. We have issued permits for a variety of work on and behind the neighboring buildings there on Central Street. So I suspect you've got the same jurisdiction. If there's no expansion of the impervious surface and no, let's say, further intrusion closer to the stream, then it's probably an after the fact RDA, but I would leave it to Kristen to give you some advice about that when you show her the work plans.
When I did the site visit, or the couple times I was out there for a site visit, I did walk behind the building to see if there were any, was any debris or whatever going back that way. I didn't see any erosion. I didn't see any
No
trash
stockpiling
or whatever.
Good.
I mean, there was a
Good.
dumpster back there, but luckily it wasn't windy, so nothing was flying out of there. Do you know if the dumpster's been removed now, sir?
I'm not going to say the dumpsters have been removed. I've asked her to be removed, but I don't want to say it's been removed as of right this moment. But obviously, if you want it to be removed, I can just give me 24
I think
hours.
that'd be
I'll
a
have it
good
removed.
idea,
Yeah.
just in case.
Sure.
The
Sure.
next step is to share your work plans, sketches, anything that shows the footprint and how it might be changing with Kristen, and take her advice about what kind of after the fact filing to make, and depending on what she sees and communicates to us, you may be able to proceed quickly, or you may have to pause for a few weeks while we have a more formal hearing.
Yeah. I would just
Anybody
ask-
else want to chime in on this?
No, I think that sounds right.
And I was just curious, Mr. Fournier, is it all interior work at this point? Or just to the building? You're not doing anything to the driveway or anything near the riverfront?
Yeah, we're not doing, actually, we're doing 0 behind the building. If you're all familiar with the building, I assume,
Yes.
looking at the building to the right-hand side, what I call the 70s bar, that has been totally removed. And we'd like to put the house back to the way it used to look in 1779. If I could figure out how to share my screen, I would share the pictures I put on and I saved. But that being said, we're not going in the backyard at all, except for obviously the dumpsters there. It's a little bit difficult to put a dumpster in the front and have the interiors things removed, but I will have the dumpster removed from the back. If you just give me 24 hours, I think that's sufficient enough for me to get it removed. I always try to keep the properties very, very clean. And, I'm kind of a little fanatic with things with cleanliness in the back, so I'm sure there's no debris there.
So I agree, then just talk to Kristen, see what we can do about this demo thing,
Okay.
patio.
Good. And thanks for coming in tonight and for making the effort at least to share those pictures. You can
Thank you, I appreciate that.
email them to Kristen if you want, and we'll take a look at them later.
Yes, can I get the Christian, your website? I mean, your email's on the website?
It is, yep.
Okay.
It's my last name, Farr, Farr, first name K, at manchester.ma.us.
Okay, I will do that in the next few minutes. I'll email it to you and then you can share it with the rest.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good
And,
evening.
and thank you, Commissioner, and also the chair for all your effort. I know what it's like to be on boards, and it's I think it's been almost 3 hours, so 2.5 hours. So I know the dedication it puts in.
Well, we
Thank
get the big bucks and the great benefits.
I'm sure. Thank
Thank
you.
you
and
for the
good evening to everyone.
wonderful job you're doing here in town. We, as a museum trustee, we'd love to see the projects that you've been involved in, and the historic preservation you've done has been magnificent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just a passion. It really is. At the end of the day, it's a passion that I have to make something that looked way it used to look back 200 or 300 years ago. And that's, there was many opportunities to increase the, the rooms and things like that, but I just keep it the way it used to look back in the day.
Yeah, well, you did a splendid job. We live across the street from 9 Ashland, and
Okay.
the Gothic exterior is, I'm sure, better than it was originally. But
Thank you.
you kept the windows exactly as they were, very complicated.
Yeah, thank
mullions
you.
and shapes.
Yeah, thank
Good-
you very
good
much.
work.
That was built in 1847, that home, and we kept it exactly the way it was.
Well, the whole street breathed a sigh of relief. When,
Thank you.
A, you didn't tear it down, and B, you didn't turn it into something 2024.
No. Thank you very much for everyone for your attention.
you.
And I will email the things over shortly. Thank you very much, Krista.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, the last subject then is about the kiosk at Wilderness Conservation Area on School Street. You remember that we authorized a 50% share of the $1,500, maybe it was actually a little more when the dust settled, budget for Ken King and his crew now to completely restore and rejuvenate that. And I spent an hour with him on it yesterday, and it really is beautifully built. It's just worn a bit, particularly on the sunny side. Needs to be sanded and varnished in some places, and the roof inspected, some things tightened up, but very nicely made. In the course of doing that, he noticed that the 2 oak trees that are right next to it carry an awful lot of dead wood. The arborist who looked at it doesn't think that they're candidates for removal, but it would be a good idea, really prudent if we're spending $1,500 on the kiosk, to get that dead wood out before it comes tumbling down on top of it. I'll share my screen for a sec here and show you a picture of that.
Something's going on with screen sharing, Steve.
Yeah, it's tough.
Oh, there it goes.
So let's see. That's not it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
As you come down the path from the beaver deceivers from the boardwalk, this is looking through Supat's iron gate at the kiosk with the 2 oak trees to its right. And another problem emerged, which is the cedar or juniper, whatever that is, to the left, which was unfortunately planted very close to the kiosk and to the edge of vegetation from the marsh. And as this species likes, it's grown sideways, and it's blocked off pretty much the walking path that was on the other side of the kiosk. And it also has a crazy growth habit, a crooked trunk, and it's impinging anyway, wrong tree, wrong place, unfortunately. Less than 10 years in that spot. So it was possible that somebody like Supat could remove it and use it elsewhere, but apparently he's not interested. So the project could be expanded to include removing that evergreen and filling the hole it leaves, and removing the deadwood. Here's a closer look at that's not it. That's Rosie giving instructions to Ken King. There, closer
What
look
is
at the
the
deadwood.
Concom being asked for, Steve?
Sorry?
What is Concom being asked for?
We're being asked to consider an additional expenditure, in this case, was it $1,250 for probably a climbing removal of all of these dead branches and leaders in these 2 trees. These are the ones that are most dangerous to the structure. But as long as you're up there, you might as well take out the stuff that's weighting down, probably inhibiting, bringing in bugs and other things that the trees don't need.
But why is Concom paying for this?
This is town land.
There's a budget within DPW for tree maintenance.
That is true. And it's possible we could get DPW to do this sometime in the next 16, 18 months. I'm not sure they have the equipment. I know they don't have the know-how to do this by climbing. Not
No,
sure
they
have the
don't do
equipment.
any of it. They hire contractors to do it.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, that's a potential solution. Ken didn't feel that this was urgent enough to hold up his work, and in fact, I think he began today with cleaning of the roof. So maybe we don't need to decide, and I could go, or some of us could go collect some information from Chuck Dam.
yeah,
Good suggestion. Anybody else have any?
Well, the arborist is Jack Montgomery, and he has done work for us that we paid for in Powder House, some tree work. So he does climb, and he would get a bucket if he needs it. And the cedar, he's just going to take out without charging us. So I think the thing to do would be to show Chuck what the estimate that Jack gave us and see if he can do any better.
Mhm.
Or if he's just willing to take this on to pay for it. But I know that we have paid for the arborist to work in Powder House Hill a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and that was on deadfalls and things that were leaning, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? Yes, gone are the
Did
days
anybody
when
look at, I know this is gonna sound silly and impractical. Did anybody look at moving the structure?
I think it's pretty well rooted there. It's on a concrete
Yeah,
slab that
that
was
would be
originally about
very
6 inches up.
expensive.
Has
I
been graded
understand.
in.
I understand.
It's not doable.
I understand.
and
Okay.
and it
Ask
would
them.
require an NOI.
Anything's doable, but it's gonna be expensive.
All
The other
right.
thing about this site is that there were a bunch of small trees and shrubs planted 10 years ago when this kiosk was built and the site was spruced up. And most of them have perished. Mainly due to
So
drought.
so
And
what are the next steps then?
next steps are for probably between Olga and me and Ken to get this in front of Chuck Dam.
Great.
Find out if it can be handled and what the timetable would be. And I mean, it's pretty easy access. You can drive
Yeah.
right under these trees.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything to add? Olga?
No, we'll just see what Chuck says and we'll bring it back if we need to.
Yeah. Yeah, if we need to.
Good.
Can I bring back that tree removal DPW request?
Yes,
Okay.
the dead ashes.
Yeah, I think that's what they were. Let me see if I can share my screen there.
Oh,
So-
you're successful. Good.
I know, I'm like, woohoo. Can you see that? Or is
Yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Okay. So it's coming from DPW. Tom's already signed off on it. Who else was this? Property owner signed off. It's 2 6-inch ash trees and 1 8-inch ash tree. And let's see, there's some pictures. So that's one of them. And looks like a different view just zoomed out.
Where is that?
I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that
across the-
retaining wall.
Does it say here? Proximity of
Located in
residences.
Powerhouse Reservation.
Let's see. Doesn't really say other than just those pictures. Here, I'll
So,
bring them
so
back.
what is the action item that we're talking about
Just
here?
to remove the trees, to allow the tree removal.
And are we supposed to vote on that?
Sure.
How is it within our jurisdiction?
I think it was just in the conservation land.
This the town portion of Powder House, not the MECT portion, I assume.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, let's vote.
Yep, I move we authorize removal of these dead ash trees in Powder House.
Second,
What
All those in
cost?
favor? No cost is mentioned here.
Shikora Tree is going to do the work, it looks like, so the DPW is contracting with them.
So is DPW paying for this?
yes, it's
Yeah.
DPW.
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor? Jeff?
Aye.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Olga?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Sari?
Aye,
And me? Aye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Prize for whoever can figure out where that is.
It
All
might
right,
be
any
on
other matters
Pulaski.
not foreseen?
Steve, it might be on Pulaski, near Pulaski.
It could be on one of those little
Yeah,
side streets
No,
off Pleasant.
yeah, or Friend Street.
It would look to me like the condos across from the gas station on Pine Street, at the bottom of Pine Street. Could it be back behind there, maybe?
Yeah, but Powder House isn't, oh, yeah, it could be
Yeah,
behind there.
It could be those.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, that gets steep. That's where the carved out garage is. Any other matters that we didn't anticipate when we formed the agenda? Good, then Olga, it's over to you.
You want me to go to Chuck? Oh, to adjourn.
Right,
I move that we adjourn.
Please.
second,
thank you, 9 o'clock, yikes. Thank you all for hanging in.
Thank
Now we
you.
all know what a
Night.
temporary bridge is. Good night.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.